Hi, my name is Alicia Carrillo, and we will be doing our object on the jewelry of Queen Puabi.
And I'm Brian Espinoza with the Z. Queen Puabi has the title Queen. The word Queen isn't really something that came around during Queen Puabi's era, though. The title Queen is something that came back much later in history, somewhere around the medieval ages of Europe, when we had the whole castles, kings, knights of the round table and all that, even though that might be a myth. We're not really sure. So Queen Puabi really wasn't seen as like a political figurehead, though Queen Puabi does seem to be some sort of a religious leader, something much more similar to possibly the shamans or the Brahmas of India, something somewhat similar to a pharaoh, someone that holds religious power and maybe some political power.
The jewelry dates back to about 4,000 years ago, and it was found by archaeologists in the city of Ur. Ur was a famous city-state of Mesopotamia because it was one of the earliest and biggest cities in the Middle East. One of the reasons it got so big was because it was nestled in fertile land, which allowed people to grow crops. The abundant amount of crops led to animal domestication, which set the foundation for civilization. This is what is known now for modern-day Iraq. Some of the objects found in the royal tomb of Queen Puabi included beaded capes, headpieces, necklaces, bracelets, earrings, and the most famous diadem, which is a word they use for her headpiece that she wore in her tomb.
The jewelry of Queen Puabi was first discovered in one of the royal tombs in the city of Ur. City of Ur was actually roughly founded around 3,800 BC, which makes it roughly around 6,000 years ago. The jewelry itself was pretty much created 2,500 BC, which also makes that roughly around 4,500 years ago. An interesting thing about the 2,500 BC is that 2,500 years ago BC is also the same time that the Egyptians were creating the pyramids, the Great Pyramids of Giza. That's also the same time that the last woolly mammoths on Earth were going extinct. So it's pretty recent in our history.
The jewelry was made using gold, lapis, lazuli, agate, carnelian, silver, and shells. The jewelry found on site consisted of various headbands, necklaces, chokers, bracelets, cuff belts, hairpins, earrings, and the list just goes on and on. The jewelry was in various shapes of animals and flowers and plants, such as Pacific leaves, male and female flowers of the date palm, which is a plant that is the palm tree that makes the dates, and antelopes, twin antelopes, certain fish, and possible goats and deer. These all relate to food sources they have. It shows Queen Puabi was a fertility goddess of some sort of figure that related to a fertility goddess. The headdress was actually not very unique because she wasn't the only one that wore it. She, along with all of her attendants, had very similar headpieces, and many of the other women in the other tombs actually wore the same headpiece. So many of the archaeologists reported that they were so sick of seeing this headpiece because it came up everywhere. It wasn't unique. The only unique thing that was about her was she was the main...
She had the cape.
Yes, she had the beaded cape, so that was what made her stand out. Hi everyone, welcome back to BAM News. My name is Alicia and this is Brian.
Hello.
Today we wanted to welcome a special guest, Chanel Hill. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming. We had a few questions for you about Queen Puabi. We wanted to know if you knew any information about why there were so many attendants buried with her in her tomb site.
Well, actually, there are really two big theories that are going around right now. The first one is that she was part of a fertility cult and that all of the attendants were members of her cult in the afterlife.
The afterlife? How did the attendants get to the afterlife?
Well, there were depictions of a lot of flowers and leaves on the actual jewelry, and it's thought that the attendants used these flowers and leaves to make a potion that they used in some sort of ritualistic ceremony in order for them to ascend to the afterlife with the queen.
So these attendants willingly suicided in some sort of
Yeah,
way?
it was like a mass suicide of themselves.
Huh. Sounds very similar to Chinese and Egyptian sacrifices. Another question is there any other ideas on this, or is that the only one?
Yeah, the second theory that I wanted to discuss was one of the virgin maidens, which basically says that the maidens were, well, the attendants that were with her were virgins when they died. And the reason why they had so many jewels and riches were because they wanted them to be able to enjoy the riches that they missed out on in this world in the afterlife because they died as virgins.
Huh, the virgin thing, it actually sounds very similar to what the Islam actually brings up, where they have 40 virgins for any Muslim man or Islam man that dies. I'm not really familiar with the whole theology, but something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there could be a connection there.
Oh, this is very fascinating.
Great. Well, thanks for coming and interviewing with us.
Well,
Yeah, it was great to be here. Thanks for having me,
no
guys.
problem.
So me and Brian just kind of wanted to give you guys a brief recap of what we talked about today about the Queen and her jewelry. So Queen Puabi is known for her jewelry, and that it was an extravagant pieces of jewelry that were found in her tomb that included various of different pieces. The famous piece is the headdress that her, along with all the attendants, wore in the tomb. What made her believe that she was a queen was because she was found wearing the headpiece along with the beaded cape. So people claimed to think that she was a queen because she was the only one standing out.
Okay. So keep in mind, the title Queen is something that we keep calling Queen Puabi, even though she was not a queen. The title Queen is something that came from Western society, and it came about much later in history. Even though she wasn't a queen, she is still a very important religious figurehead in the civilization of Earth, even though it's much more of a religious aspect. Another thing to consider is that these headdresses were everywhere. They got to the point where archaeologists were sick of finding these things, but a lot of people have them, and there is some significance there. And Queen Puabi did stick out with the whole beaded cape. One of the leading theories that stands out that is most accepted is that they were some sort of fertility goddess, some sort of like human personification of almost like a fertility god.
Yeah. So we hope you guys took in a little bit of information of the Queen and her jewelry. And that's a wrap of BAM News. We hope to see you guys again on our next podcast.
Have a nice day.
Hi, my name's Alicia. Is that okay? Redo it.
Huh?
He started filming.
What?
Recording. Are you recording?
What?
Oh my god, he's recording.
Okay,
So we have to know
we'll go
exactly
back.
what
We'll just do the
question.
original. Okay.
I think the original
What'd you say?
was
Oh my god. Mike, what are you doing, man?
just hold up your